I'm Deputy Deborah Taylor with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, and I manage the hydroponic greenhouse and fish farm. We've got a crop of tomatoes and we've got a crop of lettuce that we grow in the system here in the greenhouse. The inmates, who are all female by the way, that work in the program, take care of all the plant maintenance and all the greenhouse maintenance. As a matter of fact, with the exception of everything that's here, the structure itself, they built the tables, they drilled the pipes, they put down everything, all the pots that are filled, all the harvesting that is done. This is their work. They maintain and run this entire production, right down to harvesting and cleaning the fish. That's not one of the more favorite jobs, but they're right there with me doing it as well. Everything that we harvest, we sell to the facility's kitchen, and the account that pays for the inmate housing is where the money is returned to. So it's kind of making a big circle. They're helping to offset the cost of taking care of themselves. There's no soil in the tomatoes. What we have over here that looks like soil is actually core. It's a ground up coconut shell. And it's very, very rough and very porous, and it doesn't maintain water the way mud or dirt would. And on the other ones, we've got an expanded clay pebble, the Hydroponic. We're using this. We've left these pots with the core because we want to run an experiment to see if there's going to be any difference in the nutrient uptake or the root development in a pot full of core versus a pot full of the expanded clay pebble. We've gotten away from using rock wool, and we don't use perlite anymore because neither one of those things were biologically friendly or reusable. We can reuse this core. At the end of the season, these tomatoes will be in the system for a year, and when we do harvest and take them down, we'll take all the roots out of the pebble, sterilize, clean the pebble, and then reuse it back in the pot. We'll also reuse those same pots. We'll clean and sterilize those as well. The core, on the other hand, can be used in the outside garden, and all of this goes onto those gardens and gets worked into the soil there. But again, the pots are reusable. In the core, the clay pebble, where we had to start our own seeds, we did start them in a core base. So we have a teeny little basket of core that the seed was started in. And again, the tomato plants that we grow here, we have to start our own seed. I can't bring them from an outside vendor and try to wash the roots off and get rid of all the dirt that way. It's just too much stress on the plants. So again, everything we grow, we do from seed here. We started them in the core and then put that core in the basket with the Hydroponic. So everything got planted in that way. They're on a drip system. We've got a sump tank outside in the fish house. It pumps the water through the lines. I've got a timer. It's set up to run every hour for 3 minutes in each zone. And the water runs through the pebbles into the catch pans, and the catch pans are flowing back outside to the sump tank. The growing method that we're using here is called lean and lower. And what this allows me to do, you can see where the cherry tomatoes are just now getting big enough to start leaning to where they're hanging at an angle. And what we'll do is we'll come and take that hook, let some slack off, wrap the top of the plant, and then drop it over. So to where I have one plant standing here in front of me, it will then lean here. And then the plant behind it will come down and do the same thing. And we'll do that to every tomato plant all the way down to where they end up almost like they're chasing each other. And you can see that these are even wrapping around the corner, and they'll be running, they will be going in the same direction, but they will be crisscrossing from both sides. The reason why we do that is to allow us the maximum amount of growth that we can in this type of system. We only have to account for the footprint or the amount of space that that pot takes up. So I've got 100 tomato plants, but each one of them is occupying only 1 square foot of space. The lettuce is part of an NFT system. And we start all of our own seeds here in the house. We can't buy anything from an outside source because we have to make sure it's clean. We need to make sure that there's no soil or anything that might help contaminate the system that we've got here. So everything that we grow, we start from our own seed. The girls will separate the flats of seeds once the sprouts are big enough, and all they do is just drop this little cube into the basket. When these get the true leaves on them, right now they've just got their cotyledons, but when the first 2 true leaves come up, then they'll be big enough to introduce into the system. And by doing that, all they have to do is just take that basket and drop it into the pipe. and that's all there is to it. If the pipes look familiar, it's because they are downspouts. We just got some PVC downspouts and drilled some holes in them, set them on 6-inch centers. We've got 8 pipes on each row. One table is a 4x10 table, has 160 heads of lettuce on it. The water for the tables comes out at the head. You can see it coming out of the drip tubes here. This is all fueled by a pump that's in a reservoir tank at the center table. Everything else is set at an angle, and it's gravity fed. So the gravity is pulling the water through the root zone. We have it set at just enough angle so that it doesn't run too fast, it doesn't run too slow, but it just kind of gives a nice steady feed of water across the roots. We pull this one up. You'll see again that there's no soil anywhere in there. It's still that original root cube that they dropped the seed in to begin with. When they harvest this, they'll cut that head off and crate that. This gets thrown in the trash, and we wash and reuse the baskets, and we wash and reuse the pipes, and the tablecloth gets cleaned as well. So everything with the exception of the root cube itself is reusable. The reservoir tank sits in the middle of the house, and everything is at an angle either going uphill this way or uphill this way. But this is the tank that everything comes from. Any nutrient we need to add to the water, any adjustments that we need to make to the pH, we do here. I've got one set up on the other side as well, so that if something were to happen to one tank, I don't lose the entire system. I still have a backup on the other side. One of the things that we'd found is necessary to do is to add a water chiller to help keep that water temperature below 80 degrees. It seems that in this kind of environment, Florida to be more specific, if the water temperature comes above 80 degrees, we get an outbreak of Pythium root rot, and it'll wipe out the entire crop within hours. And we've got fertilizer concentrate of NPK and also of calcium. And sometimes we'll add a little bit more of one or a little bit more of the other, depending on where the EC meter is reading at the time. You see the water coming out of the trough at the end of the table, just running down this. All the fabric's doing is helping me maintain that any water that comes out of the pipe and doesn't fall directly into the return pipe, it's going to get channeled there by that fabric. It's giving me a nice way of making sure that every little drip and stuff that runs off is still going to follow that fabric to the return pipe. And then the return pipe is carrying it back into the reservoir tank. Now, one thing we did add to the reservoir tank as well is a small fish pump, and that's to keep the water circulating on the bottom to help any sediment or separation that when we use our fertilizer, even though it's concentrated, we still have to stir the barrels before we add it. And we want to make sure too that we don't have that separation in the tank, because we've had problems in the past that you'll get a nutrient deficiency of one kind and a nutrient toxicity of another all on the same plant because that fertilizer separated.